I still remember the day they shattered me. It wasn't just the harsh words, though they cut deep enough, but the way their eyes gleamed with contempt, as if I'd committed some unforgivable crime. My father's voice, trembling with disgust, told me I was a witch, a threat to everything holy, and that I'd bring shame to our family if I dared to follow this ridiculous path. My mother, tears streaming down her face, begged me to see reason, to abandon that nonsense, but I couldn't. I knew, deep in every fiber of my being, that this was my purpose, that healing with herbs was my destiny. They disowned me that day, not just words, but an act of rejection so brutal it echoed through my bones. I was cast out from my home, labeled a witch, a fool. I watched the fields I loved, the land that once felt like my sanctuary, fade into a symbol of my shame. But I refused to let their hatred define me. I packed my bags with nothing but a small satchel of dried herbs and an unshakable resolve. I left, not in anger, but in fierce determination. It was a lonely, relentless pursuit. Every day I faced ridicule, neighbors whispering behind my back, friends abandoning me, even once a town that refused to accept my remedies. They mocked me as the crazy herbalist, a witch in hiding, a foolish dreamer clinging to old ways. But I knew I was healing, that these herbs carried power beyond their simplicity. Slowly, word spread. People came with their pains, their heartbreaks, their broken hopes. I listened, I learned, and I healed. Years passed. My knowledge deepened. The barren patches of land around my humble home transformed into lush, thriving ecosystems. With every sprout, every blossom, I proved that natural remedies weren't superstition, but science, timeless, rooted in the earth, in trust. I became known as the town's healer, the one who mended more than broken bones and bruised spirits. I mended bonds shattered by fear, ignorance, and betrayal. Slowly, the townspeople who once ridiculed me began to see my worth. They returned, bringing their loved ones, their gratitude. But it wasn't just the people. My success was measured in something far greater, the rebirth of a land that once seemed dead, now a sanctuary of life. In transforming the earth, I transformed myself, shattering the chains of rejection and proving that my gift was real, that my purpose mattered. And finally, I was no longer the outcast. I was a healer, a guardian of hope. Then came the day I returned home, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, triumphantly. I had built a thriving practice, authored a book on herbal remedies, and even inspired a movement that revived ancient healing traditions. The media caught wind of my story. My work had gone far beyond the tiny village. I was invited to speak at conferences, to teach others, to share the truth of what I'd always known. And I knew this return wasn't just about me. I wanted my family to see what they dismissed, what they mocked and cast aside, to understand that their rejection was the beginning of my relentless pursuit, not of revenge, but of proof that love and faith in oneself could turn even the darkest rejection into shining triumph. The day I stood before my family, I felt every ounce of that transformation pulse through me. They sat in the front row at the town's annual celebration, a gathering of community, now different from the day they disowned me, more open, more forgiving. I stepped onto the stage, my voice calm but strong, eyeing my father and mother who looked both nervous and curious, like they were seeing a stranger, yet knew deep down who I was. I didn't need to boast. I only spoke of the land, of the herbs I'd nurtured, of the lives I'd changed. My voice carried the weight of years of suffering, of hope, of unwavering belief. When I finished, I reached into my satchel and took out a small bundle of herbs. I'd brought some as a gift, a symbol of all I'd become. I handed it to my father. His hands trembled as he held the herbs, eyes wide with disbelief. I looked straight into his eyes and said softly, "This is what I was always meant to do." I've healed myself first, then others, and now I've healed our land and our community. All because I believed in what I knew. What they told me was witchcraft, what they ridiculed as foolish. The silence stretched. My mother's tears welled up again, but this time they shimmered with pride. My father's jaw tightened, but then he looked away, unable to meet my gaze, as if the weight of his prejudice finally cracked open. That moment, when they saw the lush fields, the thriving ecosystem I'd cultivated, the healed people who came up to thank me, was the ultimate reckoning. It was a mirror held up to their own rigid beliefs, their narrow minds, and their cruelty. They had dismissed me as a fool, an outcast, an embarrassment. But now, in the light of what I had built, they faced the truth. They had underestimated the power of faith, resilience, and the human spirit. And I saw something else. Remorse. A flicker of understanding. That their rejection didn't break me. It fueled me. It pushed me to prove that the real magic wasn't in herbs alone, but in unwavering belief, in perseverance, in transforming pain into purpose. As I looked out over the crowd, I realized that this wasn't just about proving my worth. It was about reclaiming my story and showing everyone that the most profound healing begins with self-faith. That sometimes the deepest wounds inflicted by loved ones can become the foundation for a new beginning, one rooted in truth, respect, and love. And in that moment, I finally felt free. Because I knew that I had become more than just the herbalist they mocked. I had become a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of staying true to your purpose against all odds. And I realized then, as I always do, that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. And in that loss, you discover your greatest victory. My journey was complete, but my story, our story, was just beginning.